The story of how this movie came to be is a really interesting one. I heard you talk about it at the Q&A at the Bullock Museum last night. It was a spark created from your last movie, Alex, and that is the end of a beautiful crescendo that required you to call Ray and ask a question. What exactly was the scene, and what was the question that you asked him?
The scene was when a group of soldiers fight their way down a corridor in the White House towards the Oval Office. And the way Ray put that together and watching him work and working with him, it's just very clear how sort of wide his skill set was. And I thought it's just very easy to imagine him directing a film from this. I can see what he can do. What he can do is a lot. And then when I was cutting that sequence together, I just didn't do any time compressions. In fact, deliberately avoided time compressions, which is what we normally do in an edit, sort of speed things along. But actually it was in the pauses and in the rhythm of that sequence that, or not the most important thing, but in a way the thing that affected me the most was it had a dramatic function. I was really interested in just watching, as it were, a group of veterans directed by a veteran, what that looks like. And it immediately made me think, what if you extrapolated that out to an entire film? What if it lasted an hour and a half? And what if it wasn't fiction, but it was attempting to forensically recreate something real? So halfway through post on Civil War and the editing, I called Ray and asked him if he wanted to work together. Does he have a story he wants to tell? Explained the concept and the brief, and it turned out Ray had a story that he had been planning to tell for many, many years, and in fact had, in a way that I just didn't know because I didn't know him well enough at that point, quietly been working towards doing this already, unbeknownst to me.
Ray, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I assume that you were very ready to go whenever Alex gave you that call. Was there any pause there? You just knew exactly what you needed to tell him in that moment?
No, there were some pause. One, it was going to dive into some memories and some emotions that I had suppressed. I'd been going through therapy for a lot of things, but this was like an event that when discussed or when talked about, I was shy away from. The other component or the other kind of factor is there was a lot of other people that were there. Elliot. Just wanted to get their blessing on it. Wanted as many people involved as possible because I knew I'm very team oriented. We're all very team oriented. So I like to do things, together. And so they gave me their blessing, and I called them and let them know that this is the story we're going to do.
So I've seen this movie all the way through once and saw parts of it at the Bullock last night. It's an incredible experience, and I don't mean to put that in positive terms necessarily, but I think it is one of the few war movies that gives a realistic look at what is happening on the battlefield. And I come at this as a civilian, somebody who's never served before, but just the realities of every fight isn't winning a war, winning a battle necessarily, but there are these human moments where it's you and your teammates and you have a mission and things go awry and it gets really fucked up really fast. And in the end, there are people who make it out alive, but that doesn't mean there's any winners necessarily. It just means that that folks move on to live another day, I guess. And so one of the things that sticks out most to me is what is the soundtrack for this film, and that is there's only 2 songs that are credited in the end credits. At the very beginning, something that the characters themselves can actually hear, and then the score at the very end. The soundtrack is the ambiance of the area that they're in, or sometimes after shit hits the fan, it's the screams of those who are injured and gunfire and bombs. And dogs barking, yeah. How early on did y'all have that conversation that the soundtrack needed to be a version of silence?
Well, we knew it couldn't have music because the intention was to be as true to life as possible and to avoid, this is going to sound like I'm being sort of pejorative about cinema, but I'm not. I think it's just factually true that score is a manipulation. It can be a perfectly reasonable manipulation, but it is designed to elicit feelings in an audience that they would not have without the score. That's just basically it. And in this instance, if we were trying to be as honest and neutral as possible, score would interfere with that. Score would immediately break that rule. It would be filmmakery and controlling. And I think it was important because of the subject matter and because of the intentions to remove as much of those kinds of devices as possible. We kept some devices. The film is told in close-ups, mids, wides. It's edited. There is sound design. But the sound design is there to try and precisely replicate the subjective experiences of the people that were involved and in their first-hand accounts. So, for example, as a piece of sound design, Ray's character is not aware of radio chatter coming through his cans for much of the time immediately following the IED explosion. And then as he starts to get shot at or starts to become aware he's being shot at, the awareness of that noise comes back. Now that is a piece of sound design, but it comes from exactly the way Ray told that story to me and the way Ray's colleagues told their stories to both of us and how we sort of put all the information together. So that it's not artistry, it's trying to use the craft of film to fairly represent the account that we were given.
Ray, you said in other interviews and other conversations about this film that this movie is for Elliot, and it says that in the credits, and Elliot is an important character in this film, a teammate of yours, and you did it in part to help him remember those memories that he had lost from this unbelievably traumatic experience. Have you talked with him about whether this has helped him to remember, or at least better understand what happened that day?
Yeah, we spoke. I mean, he's seen it. I want to say three times now. It's. I think for him, it's someone. If you don't have the ability to speak and give the details, and you don't have the memory, you just have something in literary form. I think it's a gift for him. He's got two young boys who are of age now, and they're starting to ask questions. Like what happened. But he only knows it through write-ups and emails and, us verbally telling him. But he doesn't know what the house looked like. He doesn't know what color the curtains were. He has no idea other than what we tell him. So that imagery, that would be frustrating for me. I know it's been frustrating for him. And I mean, to a point where he just stopped asking. I think this is great for him to show, his wife and his dad. I think he's very appreciative. He's very grateful, and he's thanked me and the other guys on many occasions.
This movie is all from memory, the memories of yours, the memories of your teammates on that day, but inevitably for somebody who writes or creates something, you do have, I don't want to say regret or buyer's remorse, but you question how you did things. So for you as somebody who is using your memory to help craft this story, is there a memory that you thought was true that you're now questioning now that it's on screen?
No, I mean, not now. I mean, I think there was at the time, there's the tourniquet that goes on to Joseph Quinn, Joe Hildebrand. I think there's memory on where guys were at times. I knew they were in the second story, but I thought maybe they were on the first floor. So nothing that would change the outcome of what happened, but just the placement of people.
So Alex, you talked at the Q&A last night about how there were pretty tight parameters on this film. What did you mean by that, and why did you call that a liberating experience? Because those two things seem to form a sort of paradox, but I think it does make sense in the end.
Yeah, it's a counterintuitive thing, which is sometimes having a kind of narrow envelope to work in is liberating, because what you can do is sort of fully explore the confines of that envelope and not kind of skew off in directions that lead you down blind alleys and that kind of thing. I think that's what I was referring to. The parameters were that we were not allowed to invent stuff. And normally in film, that's what you do, is you invent stuff and you heighten. It's a bit like the conversation we were just having about score. You choose where to place spikes, and you choose the shape of a story and where you're looking. And this was more either anarchistic or democratic. It would depend on your sort of perspective as an approach than that. What we did was we collated all of the accounts we could and tried to represent everything that was given to us. So that could be to do with score. It could also be to do with story structure. Within this story structure, because of the ways stories are normally told, somebody might, in the first 20 minutes of the film, think in crude terms, oh, that's the hero, because of their screen time or whatever, or the perceived role they seem to have. Then what happens at a certain point in the film is trauma and events and injuries take some people out of the game, and a whole bunch of new people turn up. And in normal story construction, you wouldn't do that. You choose one or two people and stick with them in a certain kind of way. But this was not open to that kind of manipulation. All we had, and the only thing we were allowed to have, was the accounts of people that were there. That was it. That was the end of it. It could not extend beyond that. I mean, we did also have a couple of photographs that we were, or maybe, how many did we have? Maybe a dozen photographs that we were able to acquire of the building and a few of the street in the immediate aftermath of this event. But aside from that, it was really just memories. Yeah.
At the end of the film, there was video shown of the guys who helped recreate this story visiting the set. I would imagine that was a very emotional day. What was that like for each of you guys? Last question on Warfare.
Days.
Yeah.
It
It was over the course of
whole
days?
shoot.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was over I think there was probably always someone else there, or more or less always someone else there.
Yeah, I mean, there's in that event, particularly, that was a, there's emotional roller coaster that day, but
Yeah.
some days were harder.
You're saying the day that Elliot was there?
Yeah, or there's a particular
Elliot was
scene
there
you're talking
2
about.
weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Where Charles Mountain, walks out. And he's obviously being shown what events took place. I mean, that wasn't an emotional moment. That's just, and if I shooting in the street, that's kind of standard day for us. But the days that Elliot were there, there's probably for me the most emotional day was when Cosmo was pulling or DeFaro's pulling Cosmo up the driveway, and he's asking for help. I remember explaining that to Alex, and I even explained it to Elliot on the day when he first woke up. And it's a very lonely feeling. And I was like, I thought we were going to die there. I thought we were both just going to get shot on that driveway because I could not pull him anymore. And so, yeah, DeFaro captured that like so well that we both got emotional watching it on the monitor. And I had to like leave set and cry for a little bit, let it out. And Alex kind of had to take the reins for the rest of the day. So there's moments like that that happened. And it's very, I think that's the only way it could have happened. From like a therapy or getting closure on it.
I have to end with this. This movie is not funny at all, but Alex, you're a funny fucking dude, and I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm saying that because I've heard you speak in public, and I've heard you speak in interviews, including with me. You've got a great sense of humor, but you've made a lot of serious stuff over the years. It's incredible, don't get me wrong, but I'm wondering if you have any inkling or desire to enter this satire comedy realm at some point.
I just think life is funny.
It's
weird and it's funny.
It is.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Embrace it.
So,
do you mean, am I going to make a rom-com?
not necessarily
no
that.
plans.
No, something satirical though, like a Wag the Dog type of movie. I could see you doing something like that.
To be honest, I always thought Ex Machina was kind of a comedy. When I look back on it, I think like this is full of like silly gags. But the only one people sort of got that the disco dancing was kind of silly, and I guess they laughed at that. But I don't know.
Well, it's
Nobody
especially
gets me. You get me.
Well, guys, thank you so much for this film. Thank you for the time today. It truly is a beautiful piece of art. I really appreciate you pouring your heart out on the screen like this, Ray, Alex.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.